Would you like to start with Matt Grace? I know he got hurt
Yeah.
Monday night.
Yeah, so Matt had to leave the game on Monday. Went in, MRI looked pretty clean, bruise or a pull of his MCL ligament. So I was told pull. I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but so that'll certainly have him out for tomorrow against Wichita State, and then we'll have to see going forward just kind of how he reacts to the rehab. Very little swelling, so some of these other indicators are pretty positive right now, and we'll see how it looks, day by day.
Do you have a plan yet as to who starts?
Yeah, we're going to start Isaiah Bigelow, and then we feel like we do have good depth this year, so Mike Walls will get an opportunity to play. And then, as we get a little bit, we'll have to mix up our lineups a little bit. We're used to playing with a kind of a dedicated center. But if we have to mix up our lineup, we feel like we'll be able to do that with some of the versatility that we have.
Do you have a sense as to whether this is sort of a long-term thing with Matt or a shorter-term thing?
I feel like it's a shorter-term thing.
Punch me in the neck if you'd like, but I'm going to ask about flopping. And the penalty for flopping this year, which is new.
In this room? Or
not in this room. It cost you 2 points the other night. You lost by 2 in OT. Do you think that's a fair way to discourage flopping? Or I know you were really praising your guys for taking charges first couple of games.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to comment on the plays in particular, but I will say that these guys have been playing basketball for 12 years, and taking a charge is, for most players, that's the ultimate defensive play. Maybe not for a great shot blocker or Jacob Gilliard, but that's the ultimate defensive play. And there's a lot goes into taking a charge. You're generally covering someone else. You have to sprint or be positioned correctly. You have to be outside the semicircle now, which didn't exist, and then they made it larger. And then, ideally you take the contact in the chest and fall down. That's ideally. That's not always how it happens. You can't blame a guy for anticipating the contact, because the guy coming top speed into him is fast and strong and weighs 200 pounds or more. So it's complicated. I'm not sure. I don't remember how the discussion went that made it go from from rewarded years ago to warned to automatically basically a point penalty. So I don't. It's tricky for sure, and I don't know. I can't put my finger on exactly how we got to the point where it's that. That's what that's how it is. And is it, is it going to be officiated the same way in the first half as it is in the last 2 minutes? That's a lot to put on the official.
Coach Mooney, you've used 9 players, 10 or more minutes each so far on average. Would you see that continuing, or would you like to chop it down a little bit?
No, I do see it continuing. I think that it's certainly we feel like we have that depth, and I think the guys who have not gotten in as much are competing and close and probably can play. So no, I'd like to keep it there. And one thing that it has done is it has enabled practices to be competitive. I think guys recognize there's playing time available, and I do think depth is a strength of our team, and hopefully it can show itself here.
A lot of interest in this area about Jason Nelson for obvious reasons. After 3 games, do you have a strong sense of what's going on with him and how he's playing?
Well, he certainly could be a great player, and he's had great moments in each of the 3 games we've played. Great moments, and he's a steady player. He's not a high and low kind of player, a volatile player. And I think that he has a chance to be great. He handles the ball very well. He has a very good sense for the game. He's a physical player. So in terms of all these guards that we had, there's a little bit of Cedric Lindsey. His change of speed reminds me a little bit of Chandre. And so, yeah, I think that he's going to get better and better. I think that, he's quiet, but especially in the game the other night, I mean, he was loud. He was passionate. He was, talking to his teammates. I mean, I think there are a lot of tremendous qualities there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, for fans who are familiar with Wichita State under Greg, and familiar with that style, which was somewhat similar to a lot of teams in the A-10, does this year's squad resemble that at all, and if not, how are they different?
Well, it's so early to tell. I think that, they've only played 2 games at an exhibition, so it's early to tell. I mean, even though Greg was there up until 2 years ago or so, so much has changed in college basketball, and their roster has, they had transfers on their team, but generally guys who were there for a few years, and so there are new faces. They're certainly very, very talented. I do think that it's in their DNA somewhat to be aggressive on the backboard and play a tough physical style. But it would be hard to compare any team, just 2 games in to those elite teams that they've had.
What do you see from
Yeah.
the early season about this squad that comes in?
I would say talent, length, great athleticism, multiple guys who can, who can isolate or, go score on their own, really good size, depth. I mean, the guys that they have been successful at other colleges or at Wichita State, and just very impressive in terms of their overall size, length, and talent.
I know we've asked you this before, but when you go back and look at the Charleston game, do you spend more time on how you got down so much, or do you spend more time on the comeback and building a 5-point lead in overtime?
Well, for the coaches, both, a lot of both. But I think in conveying to the players, a lot of teams are going to be on the road and down 14 at half. Not a lot of teams are going to be down 21 and come back. And really, probably a lot of the time we spent on is we really had a great chance to win the game, both from regulation and overtime. But to be able to put ourselves in that position is impressive against a very good team, first road game. And I think I think it's extremely positive. It would have been an incredible win, inspiring. But the comeback was really impressive, and I thought just in terms of everybody pouring in, the energy of the players on the court, the bench, the coaches, everybody pouring in, not hanging our heads or anything like that. And so I think that part is the thing that I'm most focused on with our team. That's pretty unique and pretty special to have been able to do that, because I believe that, and I feel like that could be something that shows up. Hopefully not the deficit, but that could be something that shows up as we move forward.
Can I ask about New York, or will we have a chance to talk before then?
I actually don't know if we do, so as long as you're okay with it.
I'm willing to do it.
I'm guessing it didn't escape your attention that Colgate beat Syracuse for a second straight year last night. I know Bob and I were.
I saw it.
Yeah.
Bob and I watched very intently, and if we had been there, we would have, doubled the attendance at the JMA Dome. But I mean, when you know that there's an opponent on your schedule, how much does that enter into your periphery, even when you have a game coming up the next night?
Yeah, not much. But in terms of, I'll get to the point where I won't watch any basketball. But so far, Danny has me watching games. Well, one, this leads me to a good scheduling talk. So one, Colgate's very good, and they've been very good for 5 years now. They beat Syracuse last year also, I believe. So that's one. But we're not paying attention to it in terms of my scouting or anything like that. But scheduling, is interesting. A crack reporter, John, there's something called the Legacy Series between the Pac-12 and the SWAC going on. They've played 6 games, and 3 Pac-12 teams have gone to SWAC schools, and they're 0-3. So this is not, sometimes I feel like the national basketball media misses the most important element of this, that the reason everybody's record in the high major conferences is so good generally is because they play all home games. So So the Pac-12, which is a top 5 conference in the country, is 0-3 on the road to the SWAC, which I don't know what the SWAC is ranked, but certainly far from the top 5. So that's one, that if there were more road games being played, there would be a little bit, the parity would show up a little bit more. And then the other one is Alcorn State, who played at Wichita State, plays their first 15 games on the road this year. Now, I just don't understand why all the advocates of college basketball out there, why they don't care about those guys or those players or that team. And that seems to me that would be something that would be on the top of the agenda for everybody who cares so much about college athletics, rather than how much the NIL might be worth at a particular school. It would seem that those guys' 15 consecutive road games would be, that seems like, and they won 2 of them, so that seems like it would be something more pressing.
To that end,
Yes.
tournaments like this for A10 teams and things like that, it's an opportunity for shots at Power 5. Don't come all the time. So if you can't get them here, at least you get them on a neutral site, right? So
yeah, and just
that opportunity for you.
yeah, for sure, and being able to play those games, that those are so valuable to us, and for us, those if they happen, they're generally on a neutral floor or away, and they're early in the season. Now that's the hand we're dealt, and we have to do our best to do that, but to compete in those games. But that certainly gives us an opportunity. In my first year here, just to show you how quickly things change, Seton Hall, Virginia, and Wake Forest all played in the Robins Center. The chances of that happening today are 0. And I just, again, if we weren't all trying to make the same tournament, that would be one thing. But since everybody's trying to make the same tournament and all the with the prognosticators doesn't matter, but with all of the opinions out there on who makes a tournament and what, the most important, if the Eagles played 12 home games and the Cowboys played 6, that would seem very odd, and I think they would do something about that. They're playing for the same playoff picture. We're trying to play for the same tournament, and yet the balance of who you can play and where you can play are just very, very different.